Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to warmly welcome you in for the open house talk for psychology. And just a minute. My name is Eddie. You can call me Eddie. I'm one of the associate professors in this department. And I understand that my job is to give you a glimpse of what psychology is about and what is the program that entails if you were to take up a major in psychology. Now, so just a little bit of me. Actually, I was a student here. I graduated a long time ago, 1998. So, kind of know exactly what is the process here is like. And after that, I went for my PhD in the States, and I've been a professor here for about 6 years already. Now, so maybe I'll just start off with what exactly psychology is about, and I'll start off by dispelling a myth. And this myth is expressed in the title of this talk, in which I purposely say, reading people's mind. Have you ever encountered incidents in which, you tell somebody, oh, I want to take up psychology, and then your friend says that, oh my gosh, you're going to read my mind, is it? So, have you ever encountered such an experience? Anybody? Or is this only just me? One of my, in fact, I have all kinds of interesting experience of this type. I remember when I was an undergraduate, so I was in Clemente MRT, so I was talking to a friend and I was walking towards the bus, okay? So, and I told my friend that, hey, I'm going to study psychology. And you know what my friend asked me? He asked me, well, can you read my palm now? He thought that I can tell the future by reading people's palm. So, now, what is exactly psychology? There's lots of seats in the front, so those coming in, so be careful of the steps, all right? Just started only, just introduce myself, and I'm just going to start talking about what psychology is about. So, what exactly psychology is about? Is it, like what I say, reading people's mind? To give you answer very quickly, actually the answer is yes and no, okay? Well, there's some aspect actually to reading, but not exactly in the way that many laypersons think about psychology. Now, so exactly what is psychology? I'll first just say what exactly it is not. It is definitely not reading people's mind, and neither can we do things like manipulate people's mind, okay? Or we cannot do remote viewing. We cannot communicate with the spirit, okay? And so on and so forth. There are lots of fascinating movies around, How many of you have seen the movie Minority Report? I think it's a great movie. Please come in. We just got started only. How many of you have seen Tom Cruise Minority Report? There's this thing on precognition, predicting the future, all right? None of us in our department can predict the future. I have no idea what dinner you're going to eat later, that's for sure, all right? So I cannot tell you. And also, I'm a big fan of Star Wars, Yoda? Like he can lift object with his mind. We cannot do that as well, all right? I'm not sure whether such process exists or not, So, and of course, things like, and many of you like X-Men, X-Men where they can control, one guy can control another person's mind just by thinking. All right, I wish I can do that. No, we cannot. And we cannot communicate with spirit. All right, I do not know whether spirit exists or not, but even if they exist, we psychologists cannot communicate with them. Okay, so I do not know whether things like Ouija boards really work as they say. Okay, so this is not what psychology is. We cannot do all these things, but actually what we can read is, we can read behaviors. All right, we can read behaviors. So we want to understand human behaviors, but why do people do certain things? So what then we do is that we try to understand a person's behavior by using all sorts of methods. Take, for example, questionnaires, all right? Reaction times, physiological measures, and even your brain scan. So take, for example, a relevant psychology question, psychology research question would be, are you interested in psychology? All right, so this is what you are here for. So let's say this is my research question. I want to find out from each and every one of you, are you interested in psychology? What I cannot do is to I try to focus on your mind and try to read. No, I cannot do that. All right, but I can do all kinds of things. For example, I may want to ask you in a simple questionnaire format, are you interested in psychology, yes or no, or rate on the scale from 1 to 5. So that is what we can do, So, or we can read behaviors in other ways. So let me just give you just a few examples. Take, for example, I can put you in a room, okay, and you sit down in front of a table, and on the table there are some brochures. There's a brochure on history, brochure on geography, brochure on psychology, brochure on social work, and I see which one you choose. You know what I'm saying? So, or I put it in front of a computer, and there are different things on the screen, and I use the eye tracker machine to try to see which direction your eyeball gravitates to. All right? So in that sense, we read people's mind by observing their behavior, and from there we make the inference. So this is what psychology research is about. You know what I'm saying? Just to give you a little bit more examples, psychology is really a huge field, all right? There's so many different type of questions that you can examine. So, some of the questions, for example, what do we study? Take, for example, attention, all right? So, right now, your conscious mind is focusing on something, okay? So, if I'm doing my job, you should be focusing on me, for example. So, what explains that? Why can't you be focusing on this mic, for example? There are some cognitive psychologists who study this. They are interested in where our attention gravitates to. Now, that is a research question in psychology. Or take, for example, development. You know, a lot of people are very interested in this. How do babies grow? How do human beings develop from a baby to a young child to teenage and so on? You know, why do some people develop into a quiet individual? Why do other people develop into a more sociable individuals and so on? Okay, and of course, we often wonder about questions such as you know, like for example, the recent tragedy in Boston. Okay, why is it that some people develop into a certain mindset? Okay, so these are the questions that we are interested in. Another example would be, say, for example, education. All right, the Ministry of Education will be very interested in this. How do we teach maths, or how do we teach any subjects in general? All right, so let's say maths. Is it a good strategy to just ask the child to keep practicing, or is it a better strategy to make the child do some activities, you know, with some toys and so on, and then see how the child figure it out? All right. So what are the different strategies, and which strategies work better for which child? So this is part of educational psychology. Or another example, organizational issue. Okay. So next time you will be working. Could be working in the big organization, let's say MINDEF or some private sector, okay? And there are lots of questions. For example, what is the type of chain of command that suits the organization the best, okay? Does the ground people need really to report to the middle level first before they report to their higher level bosses, or can they just skip by? All right? How many deputies do you need for a chief executive? And motivation. How many of you run marathons? I mean, you look at my body shape, you know that I don't. How many of you run marathons? There are sports psychologists here who are interested in questions. You know how difficult it is to run a marathon, 42 kilometers. It takes a lot of motivation, okay? So there are psychologists who are interested to know how do these people do such admirable things? How do they motivate themselves? All right? As they run, do they focus on some present memory, or they focus on some landmarks and so on, okay? Or they think about the delicious food they're going to eat later? Stuff like that, you know, interesting question like that. Or relationship, how do people resolve conflicts? All right, one of the things that amazed me in politics is ASEAN. You know ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Countries. It is so diverse. You know, the different countries, different races, different religion, and so on. But they can come together and, in general, resolve conflicts very well. How do they do it? All right. Usually, in theory, conflicts are more easily resolved when you have like-minded individuals. But sometimes you put together different types of people, they can also resolve lots of conflicts. So what exactly is the mechanism involved? All right. So these are the type of subjects, these are the types of questions that we are interested in as psychologists, and are the types of things that you will be training in if suppose you do major in this area. All right. So now, what exactly is psychology? It is, I will put it this way: it is a scientific study of human behavior. So, science. All right. There's a strong emphasis on science here. So you'll be exposed to many scientific theories. Sometimes you ask to generate theories. Okay, you want to explain a phenomenon. What do you think will be a theory that is good to explain that phenomenon? But we go beyond just talking about theories. We also, very importantly, collect data. Okay, and that's why you'll be learning about scientific methods. So I think many of you have gone through some hard science classes in your A and O level, physics, chemistry, whatever, and so on. All right. Of course, there are some differences between those type of subjects and psychology, but they share the same theme as in the sense that the emphasis is on collecting empirical data, showing whether or not the theories that you have is true in the real world. All right, so you conduct experiments, you manipulate variables, you do survey, maybe you do brain scan even, and so on, just to test whether the theory is true or not true. Another strong emphasis is there's a lot of statistics. Okay, and that is one reason why there is a requirement on mathematics in order to want to get admitted into the introductory program, modules. Now, just to let you know, and one last thing is that whether or not you can interpret data correctly. All right? So, one of the things that people tend to remember, all right, to learn is by visual memory. All right? So let me just take the opportunity to take away strong visual memory that is in the heads of many people when they think about psychology. psychology is not about this. Psychology is not about elevating a airship with your hand or your mind, or trying to control minds, all right, with each other. So this visual memory this visual image erased from your memory. All right. If you want me to substitute this with another visual image, this is the visual image I think that you should know if you think about what exactly psychology is. It's like this. Isn't it boring now? It's about data, data, and data. It's about scientific analysis. It's about graphs and numbers. So this is what psychology is actually about. It's a science. All right? But I would not want to, this is only, but it's a great field. It's a great field. It's a very interesting field. The few example topics I just showed you are just examples. There are thousands of many, many different interesting topics. All right? Take, for example, just to spice you up a little bit, how many of you believe in subliminal effects, for example? Things that cannot see can actually affect you. Have you heard about that? Subliminal effects? All right? There are some studies that suggest that if, let's say, there's an invisible image being shown right now, okay, say an angry face, all right, say the word bad, B-A-D, okay, it can actually affect you, all right, amazing stuff, all right, so now there are fascinating theories and topics to examine in psychology. It means the human mind is complex. I'm sure you heard of this phrase that, I'm not too sure how it's worded, but I'm sure you heard of this idea that, the human brain is the most complex things that has been evolved out of human nature. That's true. We are still at the tip of the iceberg to try to understand the human mind. Now, and another thing is that psychology is not exactly self-help, all right? So, just in case you're thinking of taking psychology because you want to help yourself or you want to help another person, chances are, after taking it, you'll be more stressed because of this. But let me just say this also. I strongly believe that knowledge can be put into good use. Okay? I strongly believe that the psychology knowledge that you learn in your 3 or 4 years can be put into good use to help yourself, to help your loved one, to help society. That is true. That is true. All right? But do not come to take this subject only because you want, self-counseling. All right? If you do happen to be suffering from depression or some disorder, I strongly sympathize with you. It is a terrible thing to go through. Okay? If you know of a loved one, please be supportive to them. Okay? You may need professional help. There are many channels involved. All right, but just to let you know, this is a topic. It's a scientific. It's a science topic. So there's lots of experiment and data analysis. It can be quite rigorous. All right. Now, so is psychology for you? And let me just maybe I'll just explain this using a few questions. Firstly, are you interested in human behavior? I'm sure most of you are. I'm sure most of you are, since you are already here. I can name you many other fascinating questions. I mean, a research topic as well. A lot of fascinating things that you can examine when I come to human behavior. All right. So that is one criteria. And secondly, do you enjoy scientific research? It is kind of like the studies you did in the lab in your physics class, in your chemistry class. There will be lab classes. True. There are some differences, but take that as some kind of indication. All right, to whether or not you are the scientist type, whether or not you like to do research. All right, so if you enjoy research, if you enjoy doing experiment, then maybe this module, this subject is for you. And also, are you willing to learn stats, numbers? Okay, what do I mean by stats? I'm sure probably all of you have taken maths in your A level. Am I right? Or at least maths in your O level. Correct? I took my secondary school a long time ago. Okay, so I don't quite remember what's the syllabus, but I believe that in A-level math, you do learn a little bit about things like Poisson distribution, about t-test. Is it correct? Correct? So, when you take psychology at the university level, it will be based on that, but expanded. All right, so it will be more complicated, more advanced. Okay, so ask yourself when you were studying about Poisson distribution, mean, standard deviation, t-test, do you like it? Do you think you will excel in it? Okay, do you think you will do well in it? That's one strong indicator. Now, I strongly encourage you to be brutally honest with yourself. University education is meaningful and even fun, all right? But it's also a serious investment, not just money, but your time as well. Okay, So if you have some misconception about psychology, I strongly encourage you to be strongly honest with yourself. If you think that you may not be good at such thing, you may want to reconsider other subjects. You know what I'm saying? Okay? So, very important, be honest with yourself. Ask yourself what is your motivation, what is your interest and what is your ability. Now, think coherently. This is not just unique to psychology, it's unique to any subject that you take in the university. Is your thinking making any sense? Alright? Think logically. Are you good in analytical thinking? Logical thinking. If A is bigger than B, if B is bigger than C, so is A bigger or smaller than C? So that's logical thinking. Alright? Of course, that is very basic. Can you think in a logical fashion? Very important. In fact, this is one of the strong things, one of the top objectives that a university education is aiming for with the undergraduates. Alright? Creatively. Our government stress a lot about being creative. Very important too. In my personal experience, if you were to ask me, I would think that the ability to think creatively can be more important than the ability to think coherently. We often need you guys, it's good that scientists learn how to think out of the box, to see things differently, alright? To look at the same issue in a different manner. Maybe there are different explanations for the same phenomenon, okay? Be it about problem gambling or marathon running, okay? So, it can be that all this time people think that the problem gambling is due to genetics. For example, okay? But think out of the box, maybe it's due to other factors. Maybe it's just because of the way that person thinks. Okay, the person keep imagining the alternative scenario in which he wins in the bet. Alright, maybe it's due to some connective factors. Okay, maybe it's due to the culture he's in, and so on. So the ability to think divergently is something that's strongly encouraged, and this is something which also concerns many students too. Can you write well? It will not be tested totally on just essay writing. There will be some percentage on it. But it also doesn't mean that you need to be good in, English literature to take it. No. Alright? I was a science student in my A-level and I did pretty well. So it's still possible to master good writing. Still very possible. Alright? Just to let you know, there will be essay writing. Just to let you know. So you'll be encountering a lot of that. And I want you to notice that in both the science and the arts element in psychology. Alright? Psychology is pretty unique because it's like, you can see it in this way. It's like the middle ground between science and the arts or the humanities. Okay? There is a strong experimental element to it. You need to analyze data. You need to do studies, empirical research. Okay? So those students who are good in it, well, it could be an advantage to them. But on the other hand, you also need to do well in the expressive part. You need to be able to express yourself well. Alright? So writing skill is also, it can be quite important as well. You know what I'm saying? Alright? But having said that, I do not want this to come off as a discouraging remark to you. In the open house in the psychology booth, there are many students there. Some of them they are year 2, some of them they are year 3 or year 1. Most of them can tell you this, that it is possible to master the subject. Nothing beats hard work. Alright? So it's possible. Be conscientious, attend the lecture, the readings. So if you think that you cannot write well or if you think that you are poor in numbers, no, don't let this discourage you. Alright? But it's good for me as a speaker to warn you, to tell you in advance what you'll be expecting in the road, in this path if you're going to take, if you indeed choose psychology. Okay? You know what I'm saying? Now, so, a little bit of administrative things. A lot of what I'm going to say next can be found in the website, but I'm just going to bring out some important details. Firstly, admission to NUS Psychology. I think you know about this. First, you have to be offered. You have to be admitted to FASS. Alright? And at least a C6 in your O-level mathematics or an equivalent. Okay? So this you know. Secondly, after you are admitted, it doesn't mean that you can major. In your first year, hopefully you take these 2 modules in your first year. You need to get B- for these 2 modules. Okay? You need to get B-. Note the emphasis on research and statistics. Now, first, this PR 1101E, Introduction to Psychology, give a basic coverage to what psychology is about. It's a content class. Okay? But we don't just stop there. We also require you to do well in another module, which is a basic research and stats module. Alright? So a B- in both is important in order to measure. Alright? I'm not going to go through these slides a lot, but just to show you that there are different programs that you can take. Single major with and without honor, second major, minor, and exposure, and so on. Encourage you to go to the website, all right? So just to let you know, there are different tracks that you can take. What are the learning objectives? The way that I see it, there are three. Okay? Firstly, let me go to the third one first, coherent and creative thinking. This is what we want to inculcate in our undergraduates, such that at the end of the 4 or 5 years, you are more able to, think more analytically, think better, more creatively, innovatively. So that's very important to us. It's not just getting the degree, but it's also the soft skill of thinking as well. All right? The first two, now our learning objective, I'll classify it into 2 dimensions. One, content knowledge and research skill. Secondly, wide and basic and wide exposure. Content knowledge, I'm talking about learning about the knowledge in the field, okay? The theories, the past findings. Research skills are more hands-on. You need to learn how to do research, okay? So it's compulsory that if you to graduate with a degree in psychology here, you need to take at least 1 research module. And also basic and wide exposure. What do I mean by that? You'll be exposed to not just the basic fields in psychology, but a whole range of different fields. Psychology is so broad. Anyway, let me just give you some examples. There are 4 types of modules that all of you can take. So, essential, core, elective, and research. All right? So let me just go through what each of them. Okay, let's start with this. And of course, the essential modules are this, Introduction to Psychology, and also 2 research modules. So, these are the basics. All right? And after that, after you take these 3 modules, you have to take what we call the core modules. Core modules, means it's compulsory for you to take in order to graduate. If you haven't taken all these 5 modules, you cannot graduate. Why? Because these are important. They cover they cover all the major fields in psychology. Okay? To give you one example, I know I took geography a long time ago, and my knowledge of geography is super outdated. All right? It's as if in geography, you need to cover both physical and man-made geography. The 2 major fields. All right? Or economics. You need to cover both micro and macroeconomics. Okay? So, these are the 5 areas that spans most of the branches in psychology. Okay? So, it covers a big percentage of it. So, you need to know about all these basic knowledge. After which, at your second or third year onwards, you will then have a wide selection of the many different fields, all the specialized fields. For example, Introduction to Trauma Psychology, all right? Learning and Conditioning, Inference Development. I teach a module called Social Perspective to Emotion. It's part of emotion psychology, but very specialized in terms of having a social perspective, social connective perspective element to it. Okay? So, this is part of the wide exposure in which you go beyond the basic knowledge to cover the more specialized area inside. And finally, the research module. Just now I mentioned that it's very important that you have some research learning, some research experience as you take this class. So, it is compulsory that all majors in psychology have to take at least 1 research module. There are 2 types. One, we call it the lab modules. For example, lab in reading processes. You will find out what it means. But basically, in order to pass this module, you'll be doing research in groups. Okay? So you may form groups of 3 or 4 students, and you conduct a study, you collect data, you design a study, collect data, and then you write up a report, individual report. If you're more adventurous, then you take what is known as the independent research project, in which you do a research by yourself, but of course under the supervision of a professor. Okay? So you design the study, you collect the data yourself, and write up the report. All right? So, now, and to go back to this learning objective, so this is how it's expressed. Okay? So remember, content knowledge versus research skill, basic versus wide exposure. Now, content knowledge, now I will classify all this module under content knowledge, because they teach you the theories, the findings, what the current understanding of the different phenomena in the field. All right? And under research skill, this category is already covered by several research modules. I will add on honors thesis as well. Okay? Now, basic exposure, the intro to psychology class, you have to take at your first level, and also the core module. Wide exposure, where you will be taught a whole range of different, many variety of psychology topics. All right? Such that at the end of your education, the 3 or 4 years here, you will indeed learn a lot. You will indeed learn a lot. Okay? This is what I would recommend, or rather my department would recommend as the progress. First year, finished the introduction module and research and statistics methods 1. Okay? In your first or second year, now, of course, you can take some of this core module in your first year as well. So that's why I say first year also, you can also take these few modules. All right? But my recommendation is try to finish all these mandatory modules by the end of your second year. Okay? Such that by your third year, you can start to specialize on the more higher level specialized modules and also other research modules that you may want to take as well. Okay? But of course, some students are faster. They may actually take some elective in your second year or some of these core module in your first year. So that's possible too. All right? So that's why the years, they overlap. Okay? So, but this is approximately what we recommend for you to take. All right? So it means that you shouldn't be taking, for example, you shouldn't be taking research and statistics methods at the end of your second year, your second semester of your second year. That is not a good strategy. All right? Okay? Now, and of course, honors, what are the requirements? To get into honors, firstly, 110 MC, all right, including 60 MC in the major, and you need to have a cumulative average points of 3.5 and above. Okay? So, and in your honors year level in psychology, how many modules will you cover? This could be lots of information, so if you feel that you cannot take everything, not to worry, it's all on the website. But I'm just going to give you an overview of the 4 years here. All right? Now, in the honors year, you will cover you either take about 4,000 level 4,000 modules. All right? Or if you choose to take honors thesis, because honors thesis comprises 3 modules. All right? So in that case, then you will take 5 level 4,000 modules. So one of these two combinations. The emphasis on wide coverage and research coverage also is also found here. All right? So you will take more 4,000 level subjects, highly specialized subjects as well. Okay? Like for example, forensic psychology, which many of you should be interested in, or advanced child development. Okay? Now, and there's also the research module component. So even in the honors year, you'll be asked to do research. Or rather, you'll be given the opportunity to do research, not asked to do research. You'll be given the opportunity to do research. Now, how about here? This is my last section. Life after NUS. Something which I think many of you will be interested in. What will happen to me after my 3 or 4 years here? Let me just start by saying this. There are 2 kinds of psychologists. Okay? There are 2 kinds of professional psychologists. One is known as those in academia. For example, me. All right? Where we teach and we do research in a university in Singapore, sometimes polytechnics also. All right? Or in higher research institutions. So this requires a higher degree, at least a master, but preferably a PhD. The second type of psychologist is known as the practitioners. All right? Realize that there are different colors here, but it means nothing. It's probably some typo thing. So it's not as if this is more or less important than the other. So the other types are what is generally called a practitioner, meaning that they learn practical knowledge and apply it in some sense. Okay? Can be, for example, in counseling or in clinical. Okay? So helps a person overcome his or her problem. Or another example would be IO psychology. IO stands for industrial organizational psychology. All right? For example, the guys here, I think most of you have been through NS, correct? So in a MINDEF, you also have behavioral science units. They are usually the organizational psychology. So what do they study? They study things like what kind of organizational structure is good, chain of command, how leaders should motivate the ground people, okay, and so on. All right, should there be a bigger middle structure or a bigger lower structure? Things like that. All right, what kind of organization will best fit the company to make it the most productive or most profitable? Okay. Now, but for practitioner, there are several jobs in both the public and the private sector, and I will give some examples later. And what degree? Well, a good honors degree or equivalent is good enough. There are many jobs in the private sector that employ honors degrees holders, but I would strongly recommend that you strive for a good honors degree. I mean, that will give you a higher competitiveness. All right. Or some people will eventually go for a higher applied degree, say a master's degree in clinical psychology, or even to a PhD level. Okay? Now, what do NUS Psychology prepare you for? Several things. Graduate study, psychology-related jobs, or non-psychology-related jobs as well. So, firstly, I think some people will be interested in what are the graduate opportunities being offered in NUS Psychology. We do have our Master and PhD program. Okay? So, we have Master and PhD by research. By research meaning the focus is on doing research, more the academia side. So, we have both at these two levels, a Master and PhD, and also we do have program in clinical psychology. All right? In this case, there are two. One of these, a master program you do in NUS. The other one is a joint venture between NUS and the University of Melbourne. All right? And also, I would like to say that NUS Psychology also prepare you very well for top university education. Many of my former students have gone on to many good universities abroad for their PhD or master. All right? Including Columbia University. Take for example. Okay? I'm sure you heard of some good news about NUS. It's one of the top department, psychology department. I don't mean Singapore, but in the world. All right. So we are ranked very highly. This year we are ranked 28 according to one survey. All right. Now, is 28 a high ranking or not? If you think about it, the last time I checked, there were more than 17,000 universities. Okay, 17,000 universities in the world. All right, and not all of them have psychology department, but most of them have. Okay, so 28 out of 1,000 of universities, that is a very, very high ranking. And we also have external experts come in to evaluate our department, and we have very good feedback from them. Okay, so it's a solid department. We have good professors who does good research, who give good teaching, and we have very good reputation in eyes of the employers and also professors from other universities. Now, so it prepares you very well for postgraduate education. Now, but I strongly recommend that you try to strive for a good honors degree. All right? Now, the public sector, what are the psychology-related jobs that you could have? Public sector, many things. My former students work in a range of areas, from MINDEF to MSF. All right? Private sector also, many. All right? There are actually a lot of departments or units in the private sector that require psychological research. I mean, one of my former students, she was employed in, of all places, Shell. You know the petrol? Okay? I mean, it's one of those last companies that you associate with psychology, but apparently they do employ psychology, those people with a psychology degree. All right? What does she do there? I believe something to do with finding out the public perception of a different petroleum company. She has to collect data, survey data, and so on. All right? So there are actually many in the private sector, a consultancy firm as well. What about non-psychology vocation? Also a lot. My former students are in a whole range of jobs. Okay, in the public sector, from teaching, foreign affairs, police force. Okay, that's public sector. Sorry. In the private sector, from marketing to human resource and so on. Okay, so this degree prepare you for a whole range of many different jobs, whether it's psychology related or not. Why is it that we are such in high demand, even with a non-psychology related companies? That's because we train our students to think very carefully, to think coherently, or even creatively. All right. So that is a soft skill that a lot of employers want. And they are exposed to all kinds of theories about human behavior. So you do develop a more in-depth understanding of why human beings behave in one way or the other. And that is the kind of skills that many employers would like to have. Okay, so many of the things that I mentioned can be found on the psychology website. You can go and check it out. So I will stop my talk here. If you have questions, please, I would love to hear them. I'll be at the booth as well. Some of us, professors and students, will also be there. Any questions? All right, I will hang around here for a while. Thank you.